Hey guys, welcome to Review or Die. We're going to be talking about Spider-Man on the PS4. I've actually got a PS4 Pro, and this looks amazing on it. I'm not doing a game of the year, I don't think anyway, but it would definitely be up there. Sheer swinging around itself is great. It reminds me of Spider-Man 2, if anyone remembers that. And that was, the same kind of thing. And it's taken that step further. You can do all the different... you're not just swinging, you can do all different ways of moving about. You can do tricks if you want. Everywhere and anywhere is your playground. And that Spider-Man 2 game is one of the very first kind of sandbox games, as we know it today anyway, that I can remember. What I really like about this game actually is that the map isn't massive. So maps these days are so big that you just feel overwhelmed. And the great thing about Manhattan in New York is that it's small. It's big enough, obviously, but it's small enough that you don't feel like there's just too much to do or too much land to cover. In fact, I think this is the best use of a sandbox area. So as you're playing the game and you're swinging about, little crimes do come up, and that's where the other half of the game is really, which is the fighting. And it's got that Batman kind of fighting, though you've got a wealth of gadgets that you can use, and each do different things, and actually each are very unique in their own way, and they look cool as well. I found that later on through the game I used them more. I didn't really use them at all, I don't think, for the first 3/4 maybe of the game. But when the enemies get a bit tougher, and especially in the DLC for the Heist and Turf Wars, I believe it's called, for the City That Never Sleeps DLC. Apparently there's more DLC coming, not just the third chapter, but there's more on its way, and it's supposed to be very exciting. So if you're one of those guys like me who might trade in your games, I'd recommend not doing so just yet. Just keep hold of it for the moment. But so if you're not aware, a lot of Batman fighting, you use the gadgets. There's all different kinds of things in there. You get like little mini spiders that act as little mini turrets. You've got like electric ones. You've got ones that kind of put them into some weird kind of time warp almost. They fly into the end, they stay still. And then you've got the classic, like just webbing people up. And they're all great. They're all pretty good. The actual side missions, even though they do get repetitive and there's a little bit too many, I think, than what's needed, they're fun. And that's the thing, is you're always going. And there's a real acceleration. So, I mean, at the same time as playing this, I'm playing Dark Souls on Switch. It's really different. You really feel the difference. This is just like a pure adrenaline, speed, non-stop rush. Whereas Dark Souls is obviously a lot slower and a lot more methodical. It's not bat and bushing, but there's an element of that. So yeah, apart from that, it looks great. I think that's the one thing people kind of notice as soon as they start watching it. And the guys that did it, who did Second Son and all that, in the Infamous series, it's the first time I've played one of their games where I've been like, wow, that was really, really, really good. And I really enjoyed it, because the Infamous 1 and 2, was there a third? I don't think so, but they... didn't really do it. Oh, a third of Second Son, right? They didn't really do it for me. Boring, I thought. Second Son as well, everyone was going on about that, and I know that kind of was to show off the PS4 as well, but I mean, this is great. This is amazing. It really feels like you're Spider-Man. I should say, one of the main things that was also enjoyable about it is the story. Not many people say that these days, but the story itself was great. It's not an origin story or anything like that. Things have already been established. You're actually on a break from MK. She's a lot more... They've tried to give her more to do. She's a bit more powerful in terms of... She's not like the damsel in distress anymore, which is good. Just Spider-Man / Peter Parker's relationship with other people is different. The Doc Ock thing is the main kind of thing that's happening, which is not a spoiler, because that you can kind of guess that from the beginning if you have any notion of Spider-Man at all. He's not, a photographer or anything like that. You've got a camera actually in the game, but all these things have kind of happened, and there's some other characters that are introduced along the way that are part of the Spider-Man extended universe, whatever you want to call it, which play into it, and is actually really good as well. I really like their selection of enemies, not just, I'm not going to ruin anything, but kind of halfway through you're like, yeah, this is cool. And yeah, generally it's a really fun game to play. It's just enjoyable. It looks great, feels great to play, and I had a lot of fun with it. And you can unlock stuff like there's a skill tree, obviously. You've got different suits that make you look a lot different. There's a lot in there. I was like, wow, I've never even seen this before. This is great. And they all look really good, swinging around. Yeah, the side mission stories are cool. The little activity kind of, the ones that are not really story-based that much, get a little bit boring pretty quick. But the story-based ones are good. In terms of the DLC, the Heist was great. It was mainly about you and Black Cat pissing about. And that was also had a nice bit of story behind it. The second one, Turf Wars, I didn't really like as much, and I think that's a general consensus across the board, mainly because there's a character, I'm not going to spoil it, there is a character who is in the main game as well, and they do something that's not really very characteristic of who we know them as. And there's no real, they kind of give it an explanation, but for me it's not really strong enough, and it didn't feel right. So that was kind of the reason why for that. Anyway, overall, I think it's a really amazing game, and I think if you've got a PS4 and you haven't got Spider-Man, you're an idiot. What are you doing with your life? Come on. You're probably out there having fun and enjoying yourself and in the sun and running around, but you could be doing that in a virtual New York as Spider-Man. Anyway, get Spider-Man, it's good. I like it.